Well, good afternoon, and I think I'm supposed to answer questions for a few minutes, so thank you for coming. I guess there are none, and I'll leave you.
Governor Huckabee,
Yes.
are you going to run for president in 2016?
That's a great question. I wish I had the answer to it, but I don't, at least for now. But I will have sometime early next year.
Governor,
I hadn't ruled it out. Yes.
Sorry, I wanted to ask about the Senate race back home in Arkansas. How do you think things are going with Tom Cotton right now?
It's a close race, tough race. You know, David Pryor was governor and senator before his son Mark got into politics. Mark was state legislator, attorney general, U.S. senator, and so he's well entrenched. But I think that it's Cotton's race. I think he will win. I don't think it'll be a blowout by 10 or 15 points. I think it'll be a 5-6 point race, but I believe it's one of the key pickups that Republicans will have this year. Whoa, scary. I believe Iowa is another one. Joni Ernst, I'm convinced, is going to be the next senator from Iowa, which is great news for the Republican Party. And hopefully, Harry Reid gets moved to the back of the room after this year.
Governor, in the speech you talked about not keeping promises to the Kurds, American promises to the Kurds. Do you think there should have been more American troops in Iraq after 2011? Do you think any more troops should be sent on the ground right now?
No, not troops on the ground. Not even the Kurds have asked for that. In fact, they've said very clearly they don't want troops. What they want is arms. And they need something better than BB guns. They've got nothing. They're using AK-47s. You know, they don't even have a bullet that we've left for them. Nothing. And we promised them arms. We said we were going to give it. Maliki said, give it to me and I'll see that they get it. And that was an absolute lie, because he's an absolute liar and he's an utterly corrupt person. And so one of the reasons we're in trouble we're in is because of his government. Should we have ground forces? No, we don't need them. But what we should have had was a SOFA, a status of forces agreement, which we never put into place. It was unprecedented to, well, I guess the only other time we've done that maybe was Vietnam, where we left after a significant conflict and we didn't put in a status of forces agreement. And, you know, it's a recipe for disaster. It's like we should have learned that before. We apparently did not. And the result is you now have a more dangerous Iraq than we had before. In 2003, there were 1.5 million Christians living in Iraq. Today, there are less than 400,000. And they're being chased to the top of Mount Sinjar. I mean, it's just a very, very horrible situation. And what makes this worse is that ISIS, unlike the traditional terrorist who simply has the capacity to run in and blow something up and then retreat, ISIS is well organized, well financed, trained, orchestrated. They're actually running a campaign, not just terrorist acts. And that's what's so fundamentally different. I don't think a lot of Americans fully realize how encompassing and how strategic their moves are. And they've pretty much captured Iraq. What we should and could do is to help the Kurds have their own independent country. Kurdistan should be, in fact, where they are, and it ought to be a sovereign nation, and we ought to help ensure that happens.
Governor, you talked a lot about the U.S.'s special relationship with Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Is there room as a Republican Party for those who don't think that the relationship with Israel is that important that we should be less involved in the Middle East?
Well, there's room in the Republican Party for people of all different kinds of views, but I think if people don't understand the unique relationship, because we're both democracies, we both encourage personal freedom, freedom of speech. If you've ever watched Israelis, they are more apt to criticize their government than we are Americans. I mean, we're punks compared to how they can criticize their government. Try that in Tehran or Riyadh. I mean, you're not going to live to see the next sunrise. And we ought to be appreciating and respecting the fact that women are treated as equals in Israel. And they're treated as property in many of these radical Islamic nations. And why aren't we talking and speaking out about the abuses of women and children, the fact that ISIS cutting off the heads of children, for heaven's sake? That's where we need to be focusing our attention, and we're not, and it's unfortunate, and it's dangerous. That's the other part. It's a dangerous place to put people of freedom into.
Governor, you said recently that there were grounds to impeach President Obama. Can you elaborate on specific reasons that you feel justify impeachment?
What I said was that I don't think we're going to have an impeachment, don't think we even should, because there's no point in it, it's not going to go through. But when you abuse the basic constitutional power of the president, so I'll give you a couple of examples. One, he passes a law called Obamacare. We're told repeatedly the reason we can't change it, keep in mind these are his words, is because it is the law of the land. And then he gives 40 exemptions to the law of the land to cronies and people who are political supporters. Well, if you're the president, you can't just suspend pieces of law that you decide you don't like or you don't want to enforce because it would upset some of your friends. I mean, the 10.5 years I was governor, I wish someone had told me that I didn't have to enforce the law and that I could carve out special exemptions for people that were my political supporters. I had a lot more friends and supporters. Heck, I may have been better financed in 2008 when I ran for president if I'd been able to, carve out all kinds of special deals. But you can't do that. Another one was when he stood on the stage and told a vast audience, televised on Univision, that the reason he wasn't able to implement the DREAM Act and allow people to go to college because he didn't have the legal and constitutional authority. 1 year later, he pulls the trigger on an executive order that does the very thing that a year before he said he couldn't legally do. I mean, I think those are a couple of instances where the suspension of law and the reckless disregard for it could be construed as grounds. Anybody else? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here.